I knew that those nonprofits needed more help than I could probably provide, right? I knew they still needed a home or a handoff to follow through. There's nothing worse than giving a client a document or strategy or a plan and they're not able to execute on it. I am one that I like to see it towards the end. I may not be there with you, but I want to see your growth, which is why I named it Carter Growth. It's just my last name and growth. And so that's how I've always operated. I want to see people grow. I want to see organizations succeed. And so what I did, I started networking, talking and communicating, say, hey, I need these nonprofits to have a home. And how can I be instrumental in that?
Welcome to Beyond the Ledger. Real conversations with people driving business forward. I'm Troy Ashby, CPA and host. Each episode, we unpack stories, challenges, and insights from today's top accounting and finance leaders. This podcast is brought to you by my friends over at MarketScale. Welcome back to Beyond the Ledger. Today's guest is Andrea Carter, founder of Carter Growth and COO of Center for Nonprofit Management, a former EY partner who's built over $50 million in consulting revenue. Andrea has spent her career helping organizations bridge vision to execution, especially in moments of growth, change, and transformation. Andrea, good to see you.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I love it, love it, love it.
Absolutely. An EY alum and friend. I can't wait to hear your story. Thanks for joining us. Before we jump in, I would love for people just to get to know a little bit about you. Something they may not be able to find out there on the internet.
Something you're not able to find out there on the internet. Well, I'm a mother of 4. That's not always out there. You don't always publish your kids at times. I have a senior this year, and it spans all the way down to an 8-year-old. So I'm very, very proud of that. And so you may see little things out there, soccer field here and there, but I don't always share necessarily on my LinkedIn and all that. So that's a little known fact, or a big known fact.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. People don't often share about their families, and it's really why we all do what we do, but it's hard to do.
So, gotta get a kick shot.
Yeah. Well, you have had a fantastic, amazing career, and I've known you for a long time. But when somebody hears the fact that you were a very successful partner, first of all, I guess before we move past that, what was that experience like? Did you know partner was going to be your path and the achiever in you? Talk us through all the getting to partners not easy, but then staying there.
Yes, it's one of those, it's a stair step. You knew which level was next. So I will say that. You knew what was ahead of you. You knew it was 2 years for this. The next 2 years, you'll be at this level. So yes, I knew there was progression. I knew there was career advancement. It's right there in front of your face every single day. But I did not start out on this journey saying, I'm going to graduate from college. I'm going to go be a partner. It was, listen, it makes good money. I love what I do, and I get to travel, right? Those are the things coming out of college that were on my mind, right? I can go support myself and have an apartment and get a car. But you slowly start to, as you mature, as you grow, as you start to work with clients, it's like, you know what? I kind of like this. Get in a variety of sectors that I worked in. And then you honestly look up and you realize that you've been given a gift to explore and to learn it in a way. Yes, there were the busy seasons. Yes, there's the long hours, but what job doesn't have that? And so I really kind of embraced everything as more of an experience. That's what brought me that far. And then you get to a level where you're like, quite frankly, what can I do even more? And so it really it didn't become just an easy stair step, but I really, really took it and said, hey, let me take risk and let me try something different. I changed practices. I changed partners that I worked with. I changed cities. I did more of a calculated risk when I took those opportunities. I never said no on some things. And I just tried to say, hey, not no, but maybe this. So that's kind of how I got to partner. A lot of hard work. I don't take it for granted that it wasn't a lot of sweat equity in there. But truly, I did not set out to be that. But then over time, it's like, you know what? There's more that I can give and help my clients.
It's funny. You mentioned something that I think helped you get to partner. You were willing to change practices, move and get those different experiences. What were some of those different groups that you were part of and reasons that you may have changed? Just talk to us about that.
So it's interesting. I started in the audit practice and it was just a huge foundation for me. The busy seasons, the external audits, the being able to talk with the boards. And so that was really helpful for me. And then I got to a point where it's like, I wanted to know, why did we book that adjustment? Why did we do that reclass? Why did we do that? So I started thinking differently and I realized I'm a little bit different of a thinker and that's okay. But I realized it wasn't just booking the entry. It wasn't the tax, accounting, the technical matters. I knew enough to be dangerous, but I knew I wasn't really, I'll just be honest, I wasn't feeling it. I was like, what is it about me that's different that I want to explore? What else that I'm interested in? And I was that process-minded consultant. And back then, consulting and advisory was not necessarily accepted widely. It was more of a, oh, we can't do that. It's a conflict of interest, right? And then, as you know, and we go through just over the years, society evolves, things happen, there's trigger events. And I really just went with twofold approach. Hey, what are my passions and what am I leaning towards? How am I growing and thinking differently? And then also taking some risk and saying, hey, what best aligns to those interests? And so it may not be 100% of what I wanted, but if it got me 80%, and that's when I took a chance and did a calculated kind of plan and talked to a lot of people. And I joined the risk practice, which at that time was only maybe 10 people. But then guess what happened next? Enron happened. And then Sarbanes-Oxley happened. And then saw the formation of advisory, saw the formation of now consulting. And so it was just a lot of those considerations. I ended up traveling the world. And really started seeing the fold out of the consulting practice into so much more in terms of transformation. That's how it happens, taking that risk, but doing your research, but then also knowing who you are and not trying to fit into something that's not how your leadership style is or your communication style or even your skill set.
Yeah. And so how long did you spend at EY then? It was a long career. I mean, when you left, it was like this big, and you and I went and talked about it, but like, wow, that was a long time.
So I actually interned. So that part I did drink the Kool-Aid on. The internship was a great experience. And so my total career time at EY was really right at 25 years. And so you look back, and again, going back to what we talked about, that's not what I had set out to do, but you meet so many amazing people and clients, and I was learning along the way. And so that's really how it got to that point where I said, you know what? I've done pretty much every kind of sector. I've had a flavor of everything. My primary sector was obviously here in Texas, oil and gas, chemical manufacturing, oilfield services. It naturally morphed into a little bit more leaning on manufacturing, aerospace and defense. So I have a little range there that I'm very kind of nimble in, but then leaned itself to being in private equity. So I started being over some private equity clients and a portfolio within the firm. It just was a very vast knowledge that you gain. Then you get to the point where I say, you know what? 25 years. And I'll tell you, I had a mentor, he knows who he is, that said, I was all excited. Yes, made 25 years. Like you go in and you pick your award. And he said to me, so what are you going to do the next 25 years? And just busted my bubble, Troy. I was like, wait, no, he's like, no, you got another 25 years to go. Yeah. So that was the inflection point, honestly. And I was like, oh, yes, I do. Like, I didn't yes, it's a milestone. You reach it. You should celebrate. I did. But it was that realization of I have much more to do and much more that I can give for the next 25.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So 25 years, you had the meeting with the mentor. I mean, I know what you did and it's super exciting, but like, what were those data points? What other things that you were exploring as in who is Andrea 2.0?
Yes. Yeah. And I'll say it was kind of my client base too. I started going back to the PE. I started working with some of the middle market, some of the pre-IPO clients. There was a group in the firm that focused on entrepreneurs. I started sponsoring them or I started working with that group and realized you have a skill set. Yes, you work with the Fortune companies, the best of the best in the world, phenomenal experience. But then you look at a certain market and you're like, hey, they could really benefit from some of the things that I learned and that I experienced. And so I started sharing that. And then eventually you get to a point where you're saying, okay, listen, they need help. And not all the time that the firm's not able to help everybody. You're at capacity. I really started forming a true connection with their mission, what they really were trying to accomplish. They were hungry for more of what I could provide. That was kind of an inflection point. The other part of that was I was starting to be asked to be on boards, but it added that inflection and kind of intersection around your purpose and what more you can do with your gifts and your talents for the organizations that need it, combined with, again, going back to 25 years, if I could do something differently or take a step and take that faith walk in a very thoughtful and pragmatic way with the exit strategy. I will talk about that a little bit too. Like I had a plan. I thought through it, talked about what market do I want to focus on? Who do I want to work with? To where I thought, maybe I could do this consulting thing, right? Maybe I could really, truly help the clients that really need the help. So that's how it started. I didn't draw it up on a whiteboard overnight and wake up and say, you know what, I'm going to leave tomorrow. It truly was with all those things, the mentor, the clients I was working with, the board work, that really kind of helped really solidify my purpose to where I said, you know what, if I've got to do it another 25 years, let me try it. And getting kind of a little bit of that entrepreneur bug that I didn't think I had.
It's amazing. You said something that also hit me, 8 years ago when I started Benchmark was that middle market space. I started in public and then I went to this large recruiting firm. But after I spent that time at Whitley Penn, I knew the middle market exists, but I saw this entire world of people that were hungry and maybe a little bit overlooked if you go even smaller. So then you're going through all
Yes.
these thoughts, and Carter Growth just launches out of the market. And talk to us about building it. Were you flying the plane while you're building it?
Yes.
Did you get
Flying
a
the
couple
plane,
clients? Like
building at
what
the
did it
same
look
time,
like?
looking for the runway that I'm going to land on, looking for where I'm going to even take off. I mean, you name it, the whole universe of how does this happen? How do I form my LLC? What do I set up? All those different things. And you cannot walk alone. You know that, right? When you tap your resources and your connections and people that have been there and done that. That's how it started. I said, I'm going to get out there. I'm going to be in the places where I can learn, be in the places where I can continue to grow my network, leverage the network. I had lots of coffees, lots of lunches, lots of, little squeezing a happy hour here and there, just to connect and learn. But to your point on, that's exactly it. It's building as I go. Every day I woke up with, what are my 2 and 3 encounters going to be? And I would, and there, there's times where no one calls you back, or that encounter that you were looking forward to, that lunch gets canceled. And you're like, okay, I got 4 more hours to the day. Really digging and being in those places. I leveraged some of my client base too, that where I was maybe precluded from doing work with them outside the firm, I was able to really build a relationship and really leverage those and say, hey, let's take a look. I don't mind taking a look at something and doing an assessment or doing a diagnostic. And that's kind of how it grew from there. So it kind of morphed into fractional COO work. Because remember, I didn't stay in the audit side. I was not a practicing CPA, tax, accounting, all those technical areas, but the operational side really aligned where I knew all the different functions. It can go deep in each of the verticals. And I knew exactly how to reach out and help with some of the subject matter expertise and tap on my network to help, but truly kind of more of the governance side, the operations side, the true redesign and restructuring piece. That one is where I kind of narrowed down and said, okay, what I can do 10 things, but what of the 10 can I really focus on as a fractional officer? Because with the other piece I'll tell you real quick was I was always taught, stay close to the bottom line as much as possible. And so I knew with a COO or anyone that's doing fractional work, staying close to the financials where you can help affect them in a positive way. And you're learning at the same time, the trends, the data, the financial aspect of things. I didn't want to get away from that. And so that was the other piece that it fit me well to do the fractional COO work.
Yeah, that's awesome. It does. You've seen so many pieces of it to move into that COO spot. And in the middle market space, it is highly needed. I see it across a lot of my clients, whether it be fractional or consulting type work. You hit on something that was really interesting. And it's something that I think anybody that's thought about, regardless if it was at 25 years or 10 years, let's say they're leaving public, they oftentimes don't understand how hard it is to develop the business while you also are trying to do the business. And it sounds like you may have had some KPIs in place or, just some ideas like I need to have this many meetings, because I think that's one of the hardest parts. You still have to win it, but getting those at bats. Yeah. So just hearing you struggle like, oh, at coffee canceled, it's real.
Yeah. And the other thing is I learned too, and we'll talk more about this and kind of how I'm now even a morphing. We're only talking 2 years in the making, or as I say, history in the making. I don't know if I'm making history. It doesn't feel like that some days, but it's only been 2 years. So to give myself grace to know that, hey, I can continue to, I'm helping clients with their operational plan and their operating model. I can adjust my operating model as I go. And I need to, as I'm figuring out the pieces and levers and the time that I have, the capacity, who can I leverage more? And so that piece, I love continuing to evolve and not just saying it's got to be this way. So that's another piece of whatever you want to say the plan is being agile in your own and for who you are. We teach it, we consult on it, but we don't necessarily do it for ourselves. We take ourselves so seriously and are hard on ourselves versus it's okay. Listen, that coffee was canceled. I'm going to pivot and maybe I'll work on this piece. So many levers that it took to kind of get to a point. Maybe I could say I'm just getting started. It's only been 2 years. I leverage those that have done this for a long time. So I'm looking forward to
I think it's important. You said something interesting, like you do have to adapt, and sometimes something opens up that you become the expert at. Sometimes it's a natural add-on that you may not have thought about, but you're constantly seeing these challenges. Obviously, you don't want to get too far outside of who you are and the value that you bring, and that's one fear, right? So I guess let's talk a little bit about, and I know you can't mention clients and that kind of thing, but I'm curious because you do blend this great, finance and operations piece and how they work together. Are there some things that you've noticed that are common, or just some themes that you've seen that you're able to come in and fix?
There are going to be absolutely key issues funneling down into IT, funneling down into marketing, any one of the functional areas will have their own different issues and problems. And yes, I can go enough to be able to say, here's your plan, here's how you need to fix it, and I can help design that for you. Right? But I do see what's common is coming out of those silos and raising up to say, are you even doing and spending your time and energy and effort and your plans? Is it aligned at a organization or enterprise level? There's a common theme. I typically start top down and work to bottom, and then I take the bottoms up view, and that's where I'm able to merge in the middle. And so people like me who are consultant minded, we take all aspects of things, but we've got to find where that commonality is. And I find a lot of times that because we have practitioners that are very technical, they're down in their trade, that's great. I'm able to help, and people like me are able to help bring that up a level and say, there's a level of value that you might be missing because you're not necessarily lined up to the kind of the core strategic plan. So that's one area. The other area that I see is kind of in how we're structured. The way that organizations are sometimes structured, what was good 5 years ago is not what's good for today. And that might mean you have overworked staff. You might mean you have people that have a title and that's not really what their strengths are, or they've been doing something, or they've inherited something that causes further combustion in the system because you've got now roles and responsibilities all mixed up and not really defined. And so in some cases, it may be we've got a gap and we've been trying to fill it. And in trying to fill it, you really are kind of half baking the cake. And so you've got lost value there. So I love the concept of value capture, value loss, all those things. And I call it the wedge. It's like, hey, we've been doing these things this way. There's actually more that you can do over time if you move things in the right place. That's another common theme that I've seen is just our org structures, our policies are things that are confining the possibilities of our clients, and they work within it. They do a good job trying to figure it out. But guess what? It's like, wait, stop. So why are we doing that? And can we do an outsource this, or can we move this person there? Or can we stop doing some things that nobody was relying on these reports? So why are we producing them? So it's people, process, technology. You know it, right? So those are a couple themes right off the bat that I could think of.
It's awesome to hear you kind of go through that exercise. And I think sometimes if it's founder led or even if it's not, but there are blind spots or passions or passion projects. This may be outside your scope. I'm not sure, but I'm curious. What have you seen as far as either the interest or the adoption with AI, and how has that kind of moved or woven into kind of what you're seeing recently?
I would say this. Absolutely. I know everybody's going to say if you haven't started using it, you need to. It needs to be in your personal life. It needs to be in your professional life. So I think that goes without saying. I think what I'm seeing now is the reliance more for the personal use for a certain role or responsibility to be able to help execute on it versus more enterprise-wide value type of operations or embedding it into your process. It takes a while to get there to build that trust. I'm not the AI expert, but just bring it at a macro level. There needs to be more pilots and more business cases developed and created so companies and organizations can truly get to, yes, we ideated on 10 things, drill it down, and then go put it into place and execute it. Put it as a part of the process. Train your people, not just make it theoretical. I just make it the art of the possible. We want to explore it, get out of that pilot stage and just make it a part of your process. That's what I see the most in terms of all the concepts and the thoughts and the ideas. I've told another client the other day, we don't need to meet on it anymore. We've been meeting and talking and getting lots of demonstrations, lots of demos. I can bring them in, but I can tell you right now, we need to decide. There needs to be a decision on how you're actually going to change your process. And that's the bold step. It is hard to take especially if we're talking about our middle market clients, like it's taking a risk, it's taking a chance. But once you've vetted it, you've qualified it. You've got the best to help you. You know who you want to work with. You trust them. You know, you've got a roadmap. Now it's time to really put it into place. And you'll have some preventive controls that you put in place. I promise you, it's like us talking on these laptops. You're not going to fry the computer. It's more making sure you have the preventive controls around privacy and some of those things in the use, but still using management to interpret and to be a part of that process. So it's not giving something away, and we could go on and on. But yes, that's what I see is just more so getting out the pilot stage and just start putting something into place. You got to do something.
Sure. Stop with the maybes. There's so many tools, the analysis paralysis. And then once you do adopt, because I can tell you some of my clients have moved into some automation and they find out that they've bolted on 4 or 5 different things, but then when they really take a peek, they're only using one. It's like you adopt it, but then you don't use it. So what are we doing? Let's figure it out and then adjust. So Carter Growth has been going on for a couple of years, and you and I were, I guess it was a month or two ago, and you reached out and you're like, I have some really exciting news. And you and I have talked about it quite a bit, but I want to hear how this kind of came about and what this looks like, and talk to us about this.
So again, it is so funny the way it comes back full circle. And then it goes back to what I said, look at my own operational plan. Like, okay, where am I spending my time? Where am I spending my energy? That intersection that I had of my expertise, the gifts I have, the talents and competencies with the middle market, the nonprofits. I looked up, and again, I got to give myself grace. It's okay. Where you look at it and say, okay, wait, I think 60-70% of my clientele, we're starting to be leaning more towards nonprofits. And that's okay. Very heart-led, very mission-driven companies. So are middle market and our for-profit companies. But I knew at some point I probably can't keep up this pace, because remember, I'm a firm of one, and you do need to evolve. There's lots of different models that are out there that, quite frankly, I've explored. And so whatever's fit for purpose and what your ultimate desires are, there's lots of different models to work with your consulting. But for me, I knew that those nonprofits needed more help than I could probably provide. Even if I gave them an olive branch, or even if I gave them a branch from someone else to be able to say, go work with this person on IT and your AI agenda. I knew they still needed a home or a handoff to follow through. There's nothing worse than giving a client a document or strategy or a plan and they're not able to execute on it. I am one that I like to see it towards the end. I may not be there with you, but I want to see your growth, which is why I named it Carter Growth. It's just my last name and growth. And so that's how I've always operated. I want to see people grow. I want to see organizations succeed. And so what I did, I started networking, talking, and communicating, say, I need these nonprofits to have a home. And how can I be instrumental in that? I want to focus a little bit on my for-profit clients too. So those, again, that's part of my career. I didn't want to leave the family offices, the middle market, the clients that are startups and need that same level of degree. But then you have this heart pull on your nonprofits. So all of that networking, which does pay off. Again, it may take the canceled coffee to get to the rescheduled coffee, whatever
there you go.
But I had a great friend that said, hey, talk with the Center for Nonprofit Management. And I said, I've heard of them. Let me look into that. Way back in your career, the names in our industry, lots of different accounting firms, organizations that you pay a membership fee or you're a part of. I've been traveling. I'm back in Texas. And so let me explore, talk to the board and the executive team, and found out that they were looking to really expand and do more for nonprofits, more with their consulting, more with their training, more everything, down to even a little bit of branding and logo redesign, which is all coming soon. So I don't want to give too much, but the Center for Nonprofit Management, which is the center, is a place where nonprofits, an organization where nonprofits come for the growth and support, because it's a nonprofit itself. So it's getting development and funding from foundations to say, I need the center's help to go impart the skills and the knowledge that you as a center know and have that expertise, because we just don't want to just give grants away. That's just one point of view. I have board members that are saying, I need training. I want to be good, Andrea. I heard you. And I'm like, hey, I was only good because somebody taught me. So the board training is needed. You have situations even in your nonprofits nowadays where they just may not know how to execute marketing. They may not know, hey, I want a dashboard, but I don't know how to put together an impact report. I don't know how to look at my data and synthesize it. Do we have the right tools and technology? That resides with the Center for Nonprofit Management. And so I learned a lot. Again, you're learning. Never stop learning. Even an institution I've known for so many years has grown. And so that came along, and I essentially said, listen, my nonprofits that I've been working with, I really want to support them, continue supporting them. I still have significantly invested in my brand and who I am and my experience in the firm, but I still want to keep it, but I just may not be able to dedicate that much time. Essentially helping to be and help with the operations at the Center for Nonprofit Management as a COO, because I've done it for so long. I've done fractional work. I've done interim work. I've done assessments. I can do it in my sleep a little bit. And that's not just to my own harm. It's just that it's become me. And I've become them. And so I really did want to continue that. And so now working with them is pretty still new. I still will keep Carter Growth and who I am and working with my for-profit clients, but truly dedicating my time and really helping the center to really continue to get client flow, continue to help and get funding and all the things that they may need in order to still execute and help these nonprofits. Because I would, quite honestly, Troy, I got to look under the hood a lot of times at these nonprofits. And so you know where they need to focus. So I'm easily able to identify here are the core areas that the center can focus on, deliver executive training. So that's coming soon, a whole executive series, go deep into consulting. Why not? Right? Because I've seen it. I've been out there in the market and I know people just like me that know it as well. So that's kind of how did you get here? What? So that was the conversation when I called Troy.
That's right. I mean, well, and it's wildly exciting because it kind of, again, like dovetails into all, like it's almost like it was meant for you, right? Every little step is wound your way through and you now get to, still do Carter Growth, but then also help the center. Plus it's really woven really well for you and your passion exudes. Like even when you told me about it and you're telling people now, like your face is like wide eyed and excited. And I think that just goes to show the passion that you have.
I know, but I did still call you like, okay, I'm doing a thing, Troy. Like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. But again, going back to what I said, like doing the research, talking, communicating, like I called Troy, was like, hey, so there's this, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? This is what I've done, right? And so I appreciate you just because you know what the market yields, you know where there's help and desires. And so even the subject matter expertise that's needed, subject matter expertise at the center, need finance, marketing, development, all the top of the house, IT, some of those needs to continue to deliver to help the nonprofit.
One of the reasons I wanted to have you on here is because one, you made this pivot and then you've kind of done it twice. And you actually did it internally at EY even. And I think sometimes when I talk to people who are, I don't know if I want to be an accountant or I know I don't want to be in public accounting, but what's out there? And sometimes they feel like that's very limited. So I'm just curious to hear from you, like, one, you've made the changes, but are there things that you did? You mentioned mentors and reaching out to other people that knew, but what are some steps that people can take to, if they're considering, because number one thing I hear all the time is, I want to move into finance. The easiest thing when somebody leaves public, even if it's a senior manager, like that ship has maybe sailed as far as comp versus role responsibility. So I'm just curious how you feel like you've done that and or advice that you might have for, our junior.
What I did, and to your point, it's like, oh, I want to move over here. I want to move there. Well, you still have to qualify and credentialize yourself, right? So yes, someone could say, well, Andrea, it's easy for you to say because you had the big name of EY that you could go around with. Yes and no, right? It's still not the days of the old where you could just walk into a room. It's really how you are presenting yourself as a professional and a subject matter, kind of resource on a certain topic or certain area. So I started getting smart on a couple areas and making sure I knew exactly how I wanted to make sure that I communicated the value that I can bring. So I took courses. I literally flew 2 and 3 times to Harvard and found a continuing class that was on the area that I wanted to focus on, innovation. There's lots of different resources that are out there, but you invest in yourself. So we often don't, and even for the ones that are starting out, is please invest in yourself. We pay to go to concerts. We pay to take these trips overseas, pay the $2,000 or $3,000 to go and save it. Save $200 a month, whatever it takes, and go enrich in yourself and invest in yourself to sit and learn. That was also an epiphany for me that I was so used. This is a big one, Troy. I just thought about it. I was so used to client serving that I never served myself. And I truly didn't know how. It was my brand. I hired a branding company. Again, I don't know how to do this, right? So let me go with the ones that I trust. And I remember, now that I'm thinking about it, one of the individuals said, when you go to an event, how do you show up? And I was like, I show up. I'm just there. I introduce myself. And, he's like, do you get the list ahead of time on who's going to be there? And I was like, well, I know my big sponsors. He was like, no. I'm asking outside of who you know. Who do you want to know more about? I was like, well, I can't. He was like, why can't you ask for the attendee list? I was like, well, I guess I can't. I could just say no. So it's that investing in yourself. What do you want to learn? What do you want to get? How do you want to be better? And then the other thing I would say is once you know those core things, I stayed in my lane. I really tried to say I had a lot of opportunities that came my way. And even for people that are saying, hey, well, I got this position over there. Should I jump over there? I'm just going to go ahead and take it. You can, but it may take you another lap and maybe you're going to learn something doing it. And it's great. If you're 80-20 and it's 80%, great. But if it's just hey, I'm going to go over here because someone told me to go over there. I stuck to my lane. I knew what I was good at. I could have easily taken a financial and, analytical role, FP&A. But I was like, that's not where I really want to truly drill down to where, like you said, now it comes out on what I really like and what I enjoy. And so I think a couple of those two things, I would say, like the how to. And I know people say, hey, Andrea, that's easier said than done. Yes, it's not easy. But if you stick to it, you are diligent, you wake up in the morning, you wake up in the evening, you breathe and you reset and you think about it and you get and stay connected with people like Troy, right? That are what I need. I build a network around me of those that truly are desiring to kind of make change.
So basically what I'm hearing from you though is you kind of knew where you wanted to go. You knew some steps that you need to go. Now there may be a fork in the road. And it may take you a little bit off path. But I love what you said about investing in yourself, because I think you're right. Instead of saying that's what I want, well, what have you done to earn it? Have you invested in yourself? Like that sounds fun. That I think I would enjoy that versus what have you done to prepare yourself for that? So that is very well, that's worth the entire podcast, because I think sometimes people, it's probably exactly what you just said. We're so used to serving that do we leave ourselves, we're serving our families and our companies and our clients, and where do we leave time for us?
And one other thing you mentioned, and I love the very first question you asked of what's not on your profile or however you phrase it, not on LinkedIn, because we give this resume of all these accolades. And I know you've seen all these things and accomplishments. I worked on this client, I worked on this, and I can't find the role that I want and no one's coming, but I've got all these things. How do you then get to a point where, what makes you different? How do you personalize it? And how do you distinguish yourself from the resume that honestly, it's like my older one, the whole people that are doing college, what makes this difference? It's the essay, because that's what distinguishes somebody's personal story. And because my daughter wasn't able to go to every single college so they could see her. We are able to actually put name with what's in writing and personalize it and really stick to kind of what your values are versus being all over the place. And I'm going to just hit here. I'm going to go for this and this and that, trying to hope something lands and sticks. Trust me, I've done it. There's days where, and I know Troy, there's days where I'm like, okay, I don't know where the next opportunity is coming from, right? But I stuck to kind of my core values, the things that I'm good at, not the 10, maybe I narrow down and continue to hit those hard and be in the places where those opportunities are as well.
This leads me to what I think is our last question. I have so many things I want to ask, but I also know people don't want to be with us for an hour and a half. So maybe we do part 2 later, because I think we can talk about all kinds of things beyond just your career, my career, whatever. Let's talk about, I guess, and this doesn't have to be to anybody that pivoted, and you've already given some good things, but I am curious if you're talking to somebody who is thinking about making a change, and I know this is challenging because we just mentioned a really good one, but what is it that you wish you would have done more or you would have done sooner to land where you are today?
That's a really good question, because I think that my runway, remember I talked about building the plane and the runway and building it all at the same time. I don't think there's an exact prescription of which one you have to do first, right? But I think looking back, I think I would have tried to get more in the spaces and be very intentional about the meetings and the conferences and the galas or whatever it was that I was attending. Even when I started thinking initially, like, hey, I want to do something different. So I look back at, I don't call it, lost opportunities, but I'm like, man, I was in New York and I was at that conference and I just showed up and then I left. So I think any and everything that you can expose yourself to, whether you don't even have a plan. Sometimes we get into, I got to make sure I have the plan exactly right. And people talk about this. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect. You don't have to make so much money before you do this, or I can't get married until I do this. I got to go buy my house before I have kids. Like, there's no prescription, even in your professional life. And so I think if I look back and gave advice to anyone, it's kind of just be in the room, be present, and start to begin to really, truly ideate and be intentional about where, even if you don't know it all, be intentional about where you want to be and investing in yourself and communicating that too.
Yeah. Well, I love that. And just what I'm hearing. And also a lot of the people I talk to that find themselves, whether they're in transition or they need to pivot or there's an acquisition, you're an achiever, Leadership Dallas and a number of different things that you've done. But the thing that I'm hearing about that you are saying that some of my clients and candidates share is they probably should have been networking, like legitimately networking more, being seen. So if and when something changes, yes. And it can't feel like work. And I think that's why a lot of, especially the younger generation, I think it feels like work. It needs to be something you're at least interested in, or you're just going to mail it in. You're not just going to happy hours. And so that's what I was hearing is when you say showing up, it's really expand that network that is to your benefit.
And being intentional, and to your point, not just saying, oh, I'm going to go over here. No, what do you want to get out of it? I would always come up with 3 things I want to get out and 3 things I want to give to some kind of way. And that helped me. I got to go to this next dinner and breathe, because I was looking, if I got 1 of the 3 or 2 of the 3 that I expected to give, then I didn't have a feeling of, oh, I just wasted time. I didn't get any business from that. It wasn't driven on the business or the dollar to revenue. It's like relational giving. You have to really truly think broader than just picking up a phone and asking somebody for money. So that's what I would say, is just being present. The social media, not just showing up and taking a selfie and taking a picture and saying, hey, I was there. No, who was it that you saw that made an impact on you that you want to continue to grow? Because I guarantee you'll see that individual in another 5 or 6 years, and they'll remember you and they'll say, hey, I got this problem, or I have this thing, can I talk to you about it? And then in your mind, you're like, oh my gosh, yes. And you gotta be cool on that. And when you get to that point. Yeah. That's right.
But you put in the time. Well, Andrea, this has been fantastic. I could keep going on for hours. I cannot wait to see where this thing goes. Obviously, you and I are going to be seeing each other. Thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me. And more good things to come even for you. So look forward to it.
Oh, yeah. All right.
I'm Troy Ashby, and remember, people are more than their titles, and companies are more than their balance sheets. Follow Beyond the Ledger so you never miss an episode.